Continuing where I left off, there, with his officers and princely son, Aeneas took repose beneath a tall tree's boughs. They made a feast, putting out on the grass hard wheaten cakes, as platters for their meal, moved it to do this by Jupiter himself. These banquet boards of Ceres they heaped up with country fruits. Now, as it happened, when all else was eaten, their neediness drove them to try their teeth on Ceres platters. Boldly with hand and jaw, they broke the crusted disk of prophecy, making short work of all the quartered loaves. Look, how we undevoured our tables even, Iolaus playfully said, and said no more. For that remark, as soon as heard, had meant the end of wandering. Even as it fell from the speaker's lips, his father caught it, stopped the jesting there, struck by the work of heaven, and said at once, a blessing on the land. The fates have held in store for me a blessing on our true gods of Troy. Here is our home, here is our fatherland. You know, my father, Anchises once foretold this secret token. Now I remember of our destiny. He told me then, my son, when the time comes, that hunger on a strange coast urges you, when food has failed, to eat your very tables. Then you may look for home. Be mindful of it, weary as you are, and turn your hand to your first building, there with moat and mound. Here we have felt that hunger. Here at last adversity awaited us, a limit set to our misfortunes, one and all. At sunrise, with high hearts, let us find out about this region and the people here, and where their homes are. We'll fan out in squads from our ship moorings. Tip your cups to Jove. Invoke my father Anchises in your prayers. Put out the wine bowls of our feast again. He twined the leafy sprig into a garland round his head, then made his formal prayer to the glade spirit there and to the earth. First of immortals, to the nymphs, the streams, as yet unknown, to night and the rising stars of night, to Jove of Ida, to the mother, goddess of Frigga, Cybele, all ceremoniously, and then invoke in his parents, one in heaven and one in Erebus. At this the Father Almighty in high air thundered 3 times out of brilliant sky, and shook before their eyes with his own hand, a cloud ablaze with gold and rays of light. Now through the Trojan company's quicksilver rumor went around. The day had come for laying down the walls, old them by fate, and each outdid the other as they fell, to feasting and rejoicing in the omen, setting the bowls and garlanding the wine. Next morning, when the light of risen day shone on the earth, exploring party sought the Latin cry, boundaries and coast. He was Numicius, fountain, and its pond. Here Tiber river, here brave Latins died, lived. Aeneas ordered to the king's high city 100 legates, chosen from all ranks, their heads shaded by olive shoots of Pallas, to bear the king's gifts and to entreat a state of peace for Teucrians. No lingering. At the command, they all moved smartly out in a quick march. Aeneas marched his line of walls with a low trench, then toiled away to deepen it, to throw an earthwork up with palisades, camp style, around that post, there first on the riverside. Now, presently, his emissaries reached their journey's end, seeing steep roofs and Latin towers ahead. As they approached the wall, In fields outside were boys and striplings practicing horsemanship, breaking in chariot teams, in clouds of dust, pulling taut bows and throwing javelins, challenging one another to race or box. Meanwhile, a messenger, riding ahead, reported to the old king the arrival of tall men in strange costume, and the king ordered them brought inside. He took his seat amid the court on his ancestral throne. The royal building, massive and majestic, raised on 100 columns, occupied the city's height. It had been Picus's palace, shadowed by trees and history held in awe. Here kings by happy omen took the scepter, lifted the rods of office up, and here they had their senate house, a holy place, a hall for ritual feast. For a slain ram, the city fathers took accustomed seats on benches at long tables. Here as well were sculptures of their old forefathers ranked by generations carved in ancient cedar. Italus and Sabinus, planters of vines, holding as such a pruning hook, and Saturn, horror with age, with two-faced figures, Janus, all in the entranceway, and other kings from earliest time, when men wounded in war while fighting for their country. There, besides, were many arms hung on the sacred doorpost, captured war cars, battle axes, plumes of helmets, massive gate bars, javelins and shields, and beaks torn from the prows of ships. The seated figure of Picus, tamer of horses, in a striped mantle, held a quirinial staff, and on his left forearm a shield of heaven. Circe, his bride, taken with strong desire, had struck him with her golden wand, then drugged him into a woodpecker, and pied his wings in this interior hall of the holy place. At ease upon the ancestral throne, Latinus called the Teucrians before him, saying tranquilly as they entered, "Sons of Dardanus, you see we know your city and your nation. As all had heard, you laid a westward course. Tell me your purpose, what design or need has brought you through the dark blue sea so far to our Oceanian coast, either astray or driven by rough weather, such as sailors often endure at sea. You've broached the river, moored ship there. Now do not turn away from hospitality here. Know that our Latins come of Saturn's race, that we are just, not by constraint or laws, but by our choice and habit of our ancient god. Indeed, though years have dimmed the tale, I can remember old Oronicons telling of Dardanus, how from this country of his birth he went on his long journey to the island towns of Phrygia and to Thracian Samos, now called Samothrace. From this land he set out from his old Tuscan home at Corythus, and now great halls of starry sky enthralled him, to the gods altars adding one for him. Latinus then fell silent, and in turn Ionis began, "Your Majesty, most notable son of Faunus, no rough seas or black gale swept us to your coast, no star or clouded sea mark put us off our course. We journeyed to your city by design and general consent. Driven as we are from realms and other days, greatest by far, the sun looked down on, passing his way from heaven's far eastern height. Our lines from Jove, in his paternity, the sons of Dardanus exalt, and highest progeny of Jove, include our king himself, Trojan Aeneid, who sent us to your threshold. What a storm from cruel Mycenae swept across the plain of Ida, and what destiny made the worlds of Europe and of Asia clash in war, has now been heard in the most distant lands, besides the tidal ocean, and by men divided from us by the inclement zone of sun that burns between the cooler fore. By that storm overwhelmed, and then at sea, so long on the vast waters, now we ask a modest settlement of the gods of home, a strip of coast that will bring harm to no one, air and water, open and free to all. We will not shame your kingdom. You shall win no light and passing fame, nor from ourselves a passing gratitude for your kind act. Ossians will take Troy to their hearts, will not regret it. By Aeneas' destiny, I swear, and by his powerful right hand, whether tested in convents or in battle, many a people, many a race, and here do not disdain us for this overture. In offering pleas and garlands, many, I say, have come to us and wished alliance with us, but by the will of heaven and heaven's commands. Our quest was for your country. Dardanus had birth here, and Apollo called us back, directing us by solemn oracles to Tuscan Tiber, to the sacred waters of the Numician fountain. Here, besides, Aeneas gives you far from his richer years these modest gifts, relics caught up and saved from burning Troy. This golden cup Anchises used for liberations at the altars. Priam bore this accoutrement when giving laws to peoples in due form called to assembly, scepter and holy diadem, and robes woven by Trojan women. Latinus heard, Ionis out, his countenance averted, sitting immobile, all attention, eyes downcast by turning here and there. The embroidered purple and the scepter of King Priam moved him less in his own kingliness, then long thoughts on the marriage of his daughter, as he turned over in his inmost mind old Faunus' prophecy. This is the man, he thought, foretold as coming from abroad to my son-in-law, by fate appointed, called to reign here with equal authority. The man whose heirs will be brilliant in valor and win the mastery of the world. At length he spoke in his elation. May the gods assist our enterprises as their own. What you desire will be granted, Trojan, and I accept your gifts. While I am king, you shall not want for bounty of rich land or miss the wealth of Troy. Aeneas himself should come, though if he has such need of us and bids for guesthood, for an ally's name. He should not shrink from friendly faces here. For me, a requisite of the peace will be to join hands with your captain. Now return to your ship moorings. Bring the king my messages. I have a daughter whom the oracles of fathers shrine, and warning signs from heaven keep me from pledging to a native here. Sons from abroad will come, the prophets say, for this is Latinum's destiny, new blood to immortalize our name. Your king's the man called for by fate, so I conclude, and so I wish, if there is truth in what I presage. After this vigorous speech, Father Latinus picked out horses for them from his string, 300 who stood glossy in high stalls, and ordered them led out for all the Trojans, one by one, fast horses, ornamented with purple saddle-cloths, with golden chains hung on their breast, and golden snoods, and yellow golden bits they champed between their teeth. Then for Aeneas, absent though he was, he picked a chariot and a team, a pair grown from immortal stock and snorting fire. Then there sided was the stallion crafted Circe, stole from the sun, her father, and to put to stud with a mortal mare, getting a bastard breed, bearing those gifts and offers from Latinus. Aeneas legates, mounted now, return as they brought peace. Only look upward, though, as Jove's unpitying queen. She, at that hour, made her way back from Anacus' Argos, holding her course in air. From her great height over Pacinus in Sicily to the south, she could discern Aeneas taking heart, ship companies already building shelters, leaving the ships, trusting the land they found. She stayed her flight as pain went through air. Then she tossed her head and cried out from her heart. O hateful race and fate of the Phrygians, pitted against my own, could they be killed on the Scythian battlefield? When beaten, could they be beaten? Troy on fire did Troy consume her men. Amid the spears, amid the flames, they found a way. I must, for my part, think my powers by this time tired out, supine or sleeping, surefected on hate. Well, when they were ejected from their country, I had the temerity as their enemy, to dog them, fight them over the whole sea, these refugees. The strength of sky and sea had been poured out there against these Teucrians. What were their sedges worth to me, or Scylla? What was huge Charybdis worth? By Tiber's longed for bed they now laid out their town, unworried by deep water or by me. Mars had the power to kill the giant race of Lapis, and the father of gods himself gave up the old Calydon to Diana's wrath. And what great sin brought Calydon or Lapis? Justice so rough? How differently with me, the great consort of Jove, who nerved myself to leave no risk unventured, lent myself to every indignity. Am I defeated, and by Aeneas? Well, if my powers fall short, I need not falter over asking help, wherever help may lie. If I could sway no heavenly hearts, I'll rouse the world below. It will not be permitted me, so be it, to keep the man from rule in Italy. By changeless fate, Lavinia waits his bride, and yet to drag it out, to pile delay upon delay in these great matters, that I can do, to destroy both countries' people, that I can do. Let father and son-in-law unite at that cost to their own. In blood, Trojan and Latin, comes your dowry girl. Bridesmaid Bellona waits now to attend you. Hecubus, not the only one who carried a burning brand within her and bore a son, whose marriage fired a city. So it is with Venus' child, a Paris once again, a funeral torch again for Troy reborn. And I think I'm going to leave it there, and I want to thank you for watching, and please leave a comment if you like, or just continue viewing, subscribe, thumbs up, thumbs down, and I see you in the next one. Bye.